I had no attachment to people, really. I did not feel attached to anybody. And it was very,
It's a horrible
you
place
know,
to be when you're
ooh,
when you're a teenager, right? And you don't have the language, of course, but looking back, you can go, that's what that feeling was, that feeling lost or
it
feeling
was terrible. Yeah.
invisible or whatever that is. But you can go, oh, I was never attached to as a child. Like no one ever just attuned, bonded, resonated with me.
Right. Right. Exactly. Exactly. And so when I was 16, I had kind of gone from job to job. It's like I was trying to be okay, but I was just doing it because that's what you're supposed to do. I really didn't have much of a work ethic or anything because I just didn't care. I was just doing what I thought I was supposed to be doing.
Fair enough.
And right, right. And I don't know that many teenagers at 16 have these great high work ethics, but
Right.
I did watch my parents work hard. So I did pick up a work ethic from them. So I went to work at KFC because my mom's friends said they were hiring at KFC. And get this, this is so funny because you have to think now I have a chip on my shoulder at 16. Okay.
That's right.
I do not care about authority very much. Right.
Right.
Like I grew up in a small redneck town, which I was super gothic at this point, and I just hated it. So I went in and I filled out my application, gave it to the owner, and he looked at it. I forgot what was missing. Maybe my social security number or something. I don't remember. Something was missing on the application. And he goes like this and pushes the application back to me through the counter. And he goes, don't come back until you have this filled out properly. Now,
Whoa.
normally I think this is where God actually, where the Holy Spirit, that still small voice talked to me. And I had no idea that's who it was at the time, because normally I would have two middle fingers,
Right.
left there, screw you, I don't want this job anyway. I didn't. I did I gave him whatever he needed on the application and came back and turned it in. And I started working at KFC, which is where I met my now husband. He was the assistant manager of that KFC.
Oh, wow. Now, see those great connections. I love that. I mean, even though you didn't know it was the Lord, right? You can go back, oh, for some strange reason in that moment, I listened to that something in me and I didn't put two middle fingers in his face and I did it.
Right. Now, let me just add something to that. My whole life growing up, I believed in God. Okay. My parents taught me about God. Okay. I mean, I didn't go to church or anything. I didn't grow up like, as an evangelical or anything like that. But I knew a God, a cosmic God, whatever, Jesus. Right. And I was saved at that point because a couple of years prior to that, a good friend of mine scared me half to pieces about the end times and Revelation. So I accepted Christ, the turn and burn, thing.
It's good fire insurance.
Right. That's exactly what it was. Okay, cool. But God uses all the things, right?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So I had been praying, earnestly praying, literally sometimes on my hands and knees as a young child, begging God to bring somebody into my life and bring me a family that I could connect with. Now, I thought that would be my natural family.
Yeah.
But God heard my prayers, and he reminds me daily now with my husband and family that he does daily. He reminds me that this is a result of my prayers as a child. Yeah. So here I am, full-blown rebellion. At the time then I was dabbling in paganism and witchcraft, more as like, whatever, the God thing wasn't working for me, right? So I mean, I'm full blown, like I don't give two craps about God or anything really. So I start working at KFC and I meet this guy who I thought was a big dope. He knows Spanish, or should I say Spanglish?
Spanglish, yeah.
And the cook is also the cook is Mexican, right? And they're obviously talking about me in Spanish.
Right.
And I hear the word chi-chis, and I go over there and I'm like, punch him in the arm kind of thing. And he goes, all I said in Spanish was, I wonder if you know what chi-chis mean. And I'm like, this guy's an idiot. He was kind of, well, I mean, at first I thought he was rednecky. He drove this big jacked up Toyota truck.
Yep.
I just thought, what a dingbat. Well, anyway, we worked together for a few days, and I was like, okay, maybe he's not such a dingbat. And he would like do the mopping and stuff for me.
Yeah, love that.
Like, I know. And I could tell he liked me. There was an energy there.
Right.
You know, and I was dating at the time some dude that I tried to break up with that I couldn't, because every time I tried to break up with him, and he was like super gothic and sad. Every time I tried to break up with him, he'd say he was going to kill himself. I was like, oh.
Wow.
So I asked Dwayne on a date to Denny's, which was down the road, and he said yes. So we went to Denny's on our first date.
Living large.
He was so shy. And I was like, I like this guy. Now, at the time, I was not looking for anybody like my father. In fact, safe to say, I did not like my dad. At that time, right?
Right.
My husband is so similar to my dad. It is insane. Had no clue at the time.
Right. You're not making those connections back then.
No, of course not. And so we ended up, like, he went to Southern California. So we're five hours away from Southern California, right? Like LA area.
Yep.
And we're in the middle of the high desert. And he's like, well, I'm going to go get a new stereo for my truck. You want to go with me? Now he's 19, I'm 16. So I set up this big, huge lie with my parents and say, I'm going to go stay at my good friend's house. And I bail with him and they cover for me. So I go over the weekend with him to Southern California, right? And that's where we like just super fall in love, all the things, blah, blah, blah. His truck breaks down. Somehow we managed to limp it home. I don't even, like, we had to get a tow truck and all this, but he had money, right? He was 19. He had his own apartment. He had good credit. And he wanted to really spend a lot of money on me and stuff. And I said no. And I thought, wow, this is cool. Like, there's a guy that's treating me really well and spoiling me. Like my dad. So long story short, I was on probation. We're dating. And my parents threatened to call my probation officer and send me to a group home. And so Dwayne and I bailed. We ran away. My dad was really angry with us. And actually, it's so funny because I did do a lot of really sneaky, awful things. But there's this one thing that my dad was accusing Dwayne and I of doing that we actually didn't do. And he's like, that's it. I'm calling your PO. You're leaving. I can't take it anymore, blah, blah, blah. And Dwayne looks at me and he goes, be ready in 30 minutes. So I locked my bedroom door. I turned on the music. I packed a bag. I popped out my screen. I went and met him in the street.
A movie, man.
It was like, yeah.
Yeah. With a country western song in it. Now, so how old were you at this point when you fled with Dwayne?
I did. And we went to Southern California and we were homeless. How old? I was 16.
Oh, you're still 16. So you're not, I was thinking maybe you guys are 17 at this point, but you're still 16.
I'm 16. And we live on the streets for 4 months. I mean, just crazy. There's a whole nother story there. But I get in touch with my parents finally. And I said, look, I want to marry this guy. And my parents said, fine. In fact, my dad told Dwayne, you want her so goddamn bad, you can have her. And we were actually planning on my parents allowing me to get married.
Right.
But we got caught sleeping in a car in the early morning hours in San Bernardino, California. And of course, they ran my name and there's a no bail warrant out for my arrest. And thank God my mom gave them the wrong last name of Dwayne because they thought he had changed his last name and they couldn't arrest him. If they would have arrested him and charges had been pressed, he would be a registered sex offender. But that didn't happen. So I went to San Bernardino Juvenile Hall, which, I mean, I've been to juvenile hall before, but this was really rough.
Yeah. Sorry, I had to pause a second. I had some counter transcripts about a sentence ago. When you talked about being in the truck and being arrested, your voice really changed and you got like really sorrowful for some reason. You said you
in
guys were
the
sleeping in the truck and you got caught by the police.
when we were sleeping in the car and got caught
A
by
car,
police.
yeah, in the car, yeah, the car, not the truck. I
I
felt like
don't
got really,
know.
okay, I felt like I got really sad talking about maybe calling, or they called your parents or something, and there's something in you kind of shift a little bit. I felt
Oh, did it? No, I
there was
mean, if it did, I didn't catch it because
okay,
it's I think maybe because it's leading up to me getting married. Actually,
gotcha,
this was like the coup de grace.
gotcha,
So
okay.
they take me to juvenile hall. Dwayne gets in touch with my parents. They ship me back to the small town. I go in front of the judge. My parents had wrote a letter to the judge. They wanted me to marry him. He said yes. He signed off on it. I wasn't going to get any more issues with probation. Crazy, right?
Yeah.
So 4 days after I turned 17, my parents and I went to Las Vegas and they signed for me to get married. And we did have a small wedding in Las Vegas that my parents paid for, a wedding and reception. And that was the beginning. So my birthday is 9/11 and then our anniversary is 9/14.
Wow. You
So
got 17 married in Vegas. It's been 30 years now.
yeah.
I think this is one of the most encouraging stories I've ever
It
heard.
is, right? I mean,
If parents are struggling with their kids, like they're going off the deep end, they'll never be okay. You know, sometimes they are okay.
sometimes they are. I mean, we were really stupid together. Like we did a lot of dumb things. I mean, and fortunately, there was like a 3 or so, maybe 4-year period where I got Dwayne into meth and we were doing meth and, you know, we smoked a lot of pot, went to raves, abused alcohol, had parties, blah, blah, blah. But we never wanted kids. And we're like, we're just going to party our lives away. Well, I mean, we would separate and then come back together. I mean, it was just,
Right.
it was a shit show.
Right. You guys have been through it.
Huh?
You guys have been through it.
We grew up together. I mean, we really have grown up together. And when I was 20, I was on antibiotics for some kind of a lung infection thing. Anyway, I did not know, and I was not warned that could lessen the effects of the pill. And lo and behold, I end up pregnant with our oldest son. And you know what's crazy?
That's so great. I'm sorry.
What's so crazy?
All these moments that God just kind of broke in, right? You just broke in.
I know. What's super crazy about that is I knew God put that baby in my uterus. Like I was like, oh, this is God. I got to stop what I'm doing. I had a reverence at that point. And I wasn't seeking God, and neither was he at that time.
Yeah,
but
God was seeking you.
Absolutely. Always, always, always. And I can look back on that and I'm so grateful that I got pregnant and that, I mean, it's just incredible. Well, even back up, I missed an important part. After we got married, like after it was all said and done, reception's done, we're sitting in the parking lot of the Excalibur Hotel and Casino because that's where we got married and that's where we had a couple night stays, right? And we're sitting in our Pontiac Grand Le Mans with the windows down in 100 and some degree weather, right? We're smoking cigarettes.
I love all the detail you remember. I feel like I'm literally watching like a movie scene from Ridley Scott or something. Right?
It could be. We're sitting there smoking cigarettes and I look out my window and, okay, I don't know how familiar you are with Vegas, but like when it gets really hot in the, this was like the mid-afternoon. When it gets hot, there's no sign of life. Like even cockroaches are seeking shelter. You know what I mean? Because it's hot still. It's mid September.
Right.
In Vegas. And I look up and I go, there's a bird coming into the car. This bird just appeared from the sky, came in my window, circled around us, and went out Dwayne's window. And we were both like, whoa. Now, we didn't talk about it then, but we've, of course, talked about it since then. We both knew that was God blessing our marriage.
Oh, wow.
I knew it in my soul.
Bring a tear to your eye, won't it? That's amazing.
Isn't it, though? Yeah. I was like, what? And like, since then, it's taken me to scripture, of course, about, you know, God taking care of everybody, even the sparrows, right?
Yeah.
And his eye is on the sparrow. And that actually is amazing to me. God just, like you said, kept breaking through at these crucial points in my life and blessing me when I was full blown in rebellion. I was not in love with him. I didn't care about him. I didn't care about anybody. I didn't even care about myself yet. And so now I'm getting all teary-eyed. Yet
Yeah.
God continued to pursue me because he loves me and he loves Dwayne that much.
I loved you so much.
Yeah. And it's touching, you know, when I really slow it down and I tell the story.
But isn't that something that you just kind of want everyone to experience sometimes, is just to kind of go, like, can you just wake up and see that all the things you've been through, right? Even the depths of your sorrow and pain, wasn't God there in some capacity? And you can't say that for people, right? You can't
Right.
force the frame. You can't force you don't want to force the paradigm, but there's something so beautiful about that. It's moving.
There is. It is. And he does things secretly, you know, like, okay, I can look back on my story up until my 20s and think it's so obvious now, but at the time it was not obvious. You know, that still small voice of God. Like even going back to KFC, that had to have been the Holy Spirit leading me back. There's no way I would have normally done that.
It was, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
And so God gave me Dwayne, and we worked out a lot of our attachment issues together without any kind of help. But we really bonded after he survived cancer the second time, which is like a whole nother story too. But I felt like that was the point in time where we bonded. It took us a lot longer to bond and get that deep bond. We were close,
yeah.
But that's when he became my safe haven and I became his.